Dorothy Clark, would you like to go ahead and get us started?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the Vote Smart 2021 meeting. My name is Dorothy Clark. I am a member of Our Voices. Our Voices is a self-advocacy group that formed in 2005 with only 6 members. Since then, we have grown, currently have 12 members and are members of the Arc of Virginia Self-Advocacy Alliance. We are here tonight along with the Arc of Virginia to help Virginia's entire disability community, individuals with disabilities, their families, and people that support individuals with disabilities. Tonight, our expert self-advocate and Life Like Yours presenters will be speaking on the 3 steps to get ready to vote.
I can tell.
Understand, educate, and participate. It is our goal to inform you and give you the resources to choose and vote for the right person to represent you on the issues you care most about. Tonight, that focus will be on issues we have in common, disability issues. After this event, the slides that you will see in this event tonight will be emailed to everyone who registered for this event. Now let's meet this evening's presenters.
Thanks, Dorothy, and I'll help out with that. I'm Gray Persons. I work for Hope House, and while Our Voices is led by self-advocates, I just help facilitate. My role is to be minor this evening. I'm just going to do some introductions real quick. Dorothy, thank you for getting us kicked off. Dorothy, I'll introduce you. You live in your own apartment in an inclusive neighborhood where you receive services from Hope House. You've been with Hope House Foundation for 16 years now, and you've been in your apartment there in Virginia Beach for the last 12.
Ray, your slide is not showing.
I'm sorry. Dorothy, so you were original founding member of Our Voices, and you've been actively involved with the group since 2005. She has advocated for people with disabilities since she was 22, has served on the executive committee of Our Voices, serves on the board of directors for Hope House, and is currently participating in the Partners in Policymaking program. Dorothy, thank you for being here. And
You're welcome.
great, thank you, Dorothy. And next, we are going to welcome Jesse Monroe. Jesse was born 42 years ago with a physical disability, which severely constricts the movements of his joints and muscles, and he'll be presenting here this evening. And although he has full feeling, he has no use of his upper or lower extremities except his head and neck. Since 2017, he's lived independently in his own apartment in Norfolk, Virginia, with services from Hope House Foundation. He uses lots of technology in the home to help him live and work more independently, including Google Home, Enzon Story, and Dragon Naturally Speaking. Jesse is an advocate both statewide and locally for people with disabilities, including as a board member for the Arc of Virginia, as a member of a state self-advocacy alliance, which many of you all are a part of, called A Life Like Yours, and as a member of our local group, Our Voices, where he serves on the executive committee. Jesse Monroe, where are you, and welcome.
Thank you, Gray. Great to be here and looking forward to this.
Awesome. Thank you for all the work you've put into this, Jesse. We'll be hearing from you shortly.
Yep.
Kevin Latham has been living independently in his own apartment in Chesapeake, Virginia, with support from staff at Hope House for 15 years. As a member of Our Voices self-advocacy group, he advocates for himself and other people with disabilities at General Assembly in lots of different ways, in person. He's made videos, he writes letters. He says that while he was born with cerebral palsy, he directs his own services and loves going out in the community and meeting with lots of people. He works 3 times a week with a personal trainer, enjoys cooking, comedy, and karaoke. Kevin says nothing is impossible. He lives a life like yours. Kevin Latham, good to see you, sir. Where are you?
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great, Kevin. Thank you.
Hey, Greg, you might want to go to the next slide, sir.
You know what?
Wake up. I was
You are a
left.
good man, Matthew.
I was
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right. Matthew Shapiro, the man who just spoke, is an approachable, as you will see this evening, down-to-earth speaker and entrepreneur who has lived his life breaking down barriers of disability. He uses his positive outlook on life to sculpt the audience onto his views on a variety of topics, including disability, leadership, relationships, employment, safety, getting out of your comfort zone, and more. Matthew serves on the board of directors of the ARC of Virginia, is past chair of the Virginia Board for People with Disabilities, and is principal at Six Wheels Consulting, and serves on multiple work groups, boards, etc. Matthew is a huge force. Matthew, thank you for being here, sir.
Greg, thank you very much for having me, and I need to have you around as my hype person all the time.
I would be happy to do it.
You are great at introducing. I'm going to ask you to make sure we try to, you really do. You do some really amazing introductions. Keep them slow. I think we're testing out and challenging our signers, our interpreters. So make sure we.
I'm going a little too fast because I'm so excited.
That's
Last but not least, we're going to introduce Miss Tanya Milling. Tanya is from North Carolina. She has worked in the field of disabilities for over 20 years. Her career brought her to Virginia in 2011, where she joined the ARC of Southside as executive director and led the agency through transformation from segregated services to inclusive supports that are built around the person and not their disability. In January 2018, Tanya became the executive director at the ARC of Virginia, where she is advocating for change so that every person with a developmental disability can have access to support to live their life in their community. She's taught me a tremendous amount. She is my training wheels. She is the person who keeps this meeting on track. Tanya, welcome, and thank you for being here.
you rock. Thank you.
All right. So, folks, let me click here. Okay. Tonight's agenda and our objective is to help you, audience, make the best decisions for you. What we're going to do tonight is first talk about and help each other to understand what these people we're going to be electing in November of this year do. What are their jobs and how do those jobs impact our lives? We're going to provide some tips and resources for educating yourself on how the people that want to represent you think about some of these issues, some of these decisions they're going to make that will impact our lives. And then finally, you will receive tips and resources for making your plan to take control, be heard, and vote. This evening, you will hear from the experts, and you will get the opportunity to be heard in breakout sessions facilitated by several of our presenters and yours truly. So our presenters are listed there, beginning with office and roles. Mr. Matthew Shapiro, pardon me, Matthew.
You're fine.
Kevin Latham, and gentlemen, I hand it off to you if I can click this. There we go.
Thank you so much, Gray. So we're going to start with what the government looks like, right? The General Assembly is made up of the executive branch. Those are the offices that we are all represented by, right? We are all represented by the same governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. This year, those offices are up for election. So come November and November 2nd, that is election day, those offices will be up for election. In addition to those offices, the 100 seats in the House of Delegates is also up for election this year. And However, the Virginia State Senate is not up for election this year, as they are on 4-year terms, where the House of Delegates and governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general are on, where House of Delegates is on 2-year terms, not the attorney general, governor, and lieutenant governor. And we'll talk about why in just a second. And so that is where our discussion will lead us tonight, as we focus on the executive branch and the House of Delegates.
All right, doing my best to click. There we go.
Okay.
That is perfect. First, we're going to start with the governor, and to help me with these next handful of slides, I have the amazing Kevin Latham here to assist me. So, how you doing, Kevin?
All right, Matthew. Thanks for
Awesome.
that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Glad to have you here.
So what does he do? What does the governor do?
Yes, good question, Kevin. So the governor is the head of the government in Virginia and serves for 4 years. These pictures here are the candidates that are seeking that office during this year's election. The governor also recommends and has veto powers to Virginia bills, including laws and the appropriations, which is the spending of the money in Virginia. And all bills must be sent to the governor for approval before becoming law. And it's also important to know that the governor has the budget starts and ends with the governor. He or she has the ability to bring about their own ideas that they want to put into the state's budget based on the taxes that are collected in Virginia. Some of these things that they may focus on in the budget include Medicaid, which could be a lot of services that we all have as people with disabilities to help us live our lives and help us have the support people that we all need every day. Hold on, go back real quick, Gray, for me.
Yeah,
Please.
sorry.
Thank you. And so once the governor submits his budget, the General Assembly members, meaning the House and the Senate, also have an opportunity to submit their budget. And basically during the General Assembly session, we are negotiating the budget, and the governor has the final say in approving the budget once all of those negotiations and many, many conversations are had. So that is some basics of what the governor can do. Next slide, please, Greg. Next, we have the lieutenant governor. Do you have a question about the lieutenant governor, Kevin?
Yes, Matthew. What does the lieutenant governor do?
I am so glad you asked, sir. So the lieutenant governor serves the lieutenant governor is the first in the line of succession if the governor has to leave office, dies or resigns, or for any other reason has to leave office, and they would become governor in that instance. And the lieutenant governor also serves as the president of the Senate. So what does that mean? So let's use an example in the Senate. If there was a vote that occurred where 20 people thought one way or voted one way and 20 other senators voted the other way, the lieutenant governor would have the final tie-breaking vote. So they would vote to break the tie in that instance. So the lieutenant governor has very many important powers in their job as well. Next slide, please. Next, that brings us to the Attorney General. Kevin, do you have questions about the Attorney General?
Yes, what does the attorney general do?
I thought you would never ask, sir, so I'm glad you did. So the Attorney General provides legal advice to state agencies and members of the Virginia General Assembly. They also issue opinions that interpret state law and defend criminal convictions on appeal. And then the Attorney General's office also prosecutes some crimes themselves. In addition, the Attorney General does several things that impact people with disabilities. And the example that I always think about is, let's say you wanted to move into your own apartment, but you needed accommodations to be made in order to make that apartment complex accessible. Let's say that landlord didn't want to provide you those accommodations. So the Attorney General and the Attorney General's office can fight on your behalf to make those accommodations become worthwhile so that you can successfully live in your own apartment. And there are many other instances as well where the Attorney General can get involved in behalf of or on behalf of people with disabilities to make their lives more impactful and better in the long run. So the Attorney General has quite the role as well. Next slide, please, Bill. Thank you very much. And then last but not least, we have the House of Delegates.
What do the House of Delegates do, Matthew?
That's a great question, Kevin. I thought you would never ask again, so you are on a roll. So the House of Delegates is all 100 seats in the House of Delegates are up for re-election this year in 2021. Representatives in the House of Delegates sponsor and vote on Virginia's state laws. Representatives with those laws determine things like the spending on Medicaid, which affect all people with disabilities, healthcare, education, and other criminal justice reform, and criminal justice reform pieces as well. Also, just want to reiterate that the second house or the second chamber, I should say, in the Virginia General Assembly, the Virginia State Senate, is not up for re-election this year because, again, they are on 4-year election windows, unlike the House of Delegates, which is on 2-year election windows. So this concludes our discussion on what you all will be voting on come November. And so now I want to hand it over to Tanya, who will talk to us for a few minutes about the issues.
Thanks, Matthew.
Yes. Thank you, Kevin. Great job, sir. Tanya, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, well, perfect. Thank you both. So now we know who these people are, right? And we know what the positions are and what they can do. So then we think about, well, once they're elected, what do we have to say to them? So that's where the Arc of Virginia comes in. We are, as you know, a statewide advocacy organization. And so our role and job is to serve kind of as a connector between the very large disability community. And so there's tons of partners throughout the disability community that we want to bring together and hear from and build consensus on what our legislative agenda will be. So the way we do that throughout the year, we're listening to folks, right? Again, it's a very large group. It's people with developmental disabilities. It's the Life Like Yours Self-Advocacy Alliance, families of people with disabilities, partners like the Autism Society, Down Syndrome Association, nearly 20 partner organizations that we talk to throughout the year and try to learn what is it that people are facing in their daily lives that are barriers, that are in their way to having the life that they want. So we use all of that information to put those issues together and present that to our stakeholders and the full community to develop the public policy agenda. So our annual legislative agenda is really formed by thousands of people through thousands of conversations that lead to a final area of what we want to present to the General Assembly, what we want to talk to the governor about, the Attorney General, the issues that are really significant in people's daily life and where we can have the most influence. So these are some of the hot issues that we hear regularly. So these are going to be very familiar to you of kind of top disability issues that we've heard from folks. People want access to education. They want to be included with their non-disabled peers, their brothers, their sisters, their neighbors who don't have disabilities. They want to be able to receive a good quality education, employment opportunities. Everybody wants to be able to find opportunities and maintain that work and get the support that they need to do so. We all need access to affordable housing, but then also the support that helps us to live our lives in our own homes as independently as we choose to be. We need support and services to have a qualified workforce. We hear people talk a great deal about access to services. So that's DD waivers, DD services, and people say their top issues are a responsive system for when they're in crisis, when things go wrong in life. They want to make sure there's a system that can support them. Okay, next slide. So once we talk about these issues, then we have to build a platform. So while we have a whole lot of issues, sometimes we have to whittle that down to what are the biggest items, where can we have the biggest influence, and then we go to those members that we talked about earlier, the General Assembly members, and we ask them to patron bills, to patron budget amendments. And so we have to look at the problem and the issue and come up with a solution and find someone to partner with us to try to solve that. So these are things that are big items that are on our agenda. They're long-term goals, unfortunately, and they will remain on our agenda until they're done. So it's been several years that we've had this up in front of the General Assembly and in front of the governor, is we need them to fully fund the DD waiver waiting list. You know, there are nearly 14,000, there may be just over 14,000 people waiting for waivers. 3,000 of those folks need services right away. They're in the urgent need priority level, so they need support and services yesterday, actually. We know that we need to increase the provider reimbursement rates, because that's how we're going to address the workforce issue and the workforce crisis, or just one of the ways. There are other ways, but it's the biggest way that we can have an impact is getting those provider reimbursement rates up so that employees, direct support professionals can receive a living wage. Then we need to make sure that we fully invest in Virginia's system of supports without disrupting the services that are already there. We don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. We don't want to take things away from those people already receiving services, and in order to be able to fund new services and rates. So we ask the General Assembly to look at the full system and think of how they can equitably make sure that they're supporting everyone. Okay. So the next slide. This year, thinking about those issues that I just mentioned, and we're going to talk a little more in later on where we can hear more from you, so that we make sure that we've got the right things going on the agenda this year. Are there things that we missed? Are there things that need to be added? So we're going to talk about that a little later. But we've seen an opportunity this year to ask all of the candidates to sign an equity pledge. Because it is an election year, we have candidates who are kind of a captive audience. They're a bit more motivated to hear us and listen to us. And it might be a bit easier to get their commitment while they're in this phase of running for office. And so we're going to reach out to them to see if we can talk to them about making sure that they invest in services and funding that's equitable, that's fair to everyone. For years, Virginia has invested in institutional and congregate care at a much higher and disproportionate rate over the community-based services. And that's despite the fact that there's a DOJ agreement. I imagine everybody on this call is educated and well-informed about that. The DOJ agreement insisted that Virginia invest in community services by building a robust system. But with 14,000 people waiting, that's evidence that there's not a robust system. And Virginia continues when things come up like the provider reimbursement rates, very specific things that we've watched over these last couple of sessions. When the opportunities come up to make investments, they keep prioritizing the congregate and institutional settings by giving them higher rates than they do the community-based services, such as supported living, things that help people to live in their own home, as opposed to in a congregate setting. So we're not asking for more, we're asking for equal. We're asking just to be treated equally so that we can build that really robust system that supports people to live a life like mine and yours. So we really are going to go to them and ask them to sign a pledge. We ask them over and over. So we want evidence, right? A pledge is a promise. We want them to promise us that they are going to support policies and funding for inclusive education that is equitable, where students can receive an appropriate education in public schools or in private day schools as they choose. Equity in funding inclusive supports, that services are individualized, they're integrated, they're community-based and based on the person, and that those are funded equally. And then in access to services, we want to make sure that that's our chance to say, get people on record of saying that they are in favor of funding the DD waivers and making sure that everyone has services. So that's something, a project, an initiative that we have going on now in partnership with our Ally Alliance, who has recorded a little video that explains the pledge that's going out to all candidates and elected members so that we can get their buy-in now. Okay, that is it. Those are the hot topics, and soon and next, we will certainly want to hear more from you. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Tanya. So we do want to hear from each of you, and so what we're going to do is we are going to go into some breakout rooms. Now, I am a novice. I am not good at this, so give me a little bit of I beg your pardon for any problems that may exist as I try to make this happen. So let's see here. I don't see where I'm able to do that, Tanya, now that because I'm not signed in as you.
Oh, I see. It could be that it's disappeared too because you're sharing your screen. If you hit the more button, oh, well, there you go. Now it should show up at the bottom for you.
Got it.
Oh, excellent.
So we are going to have 4 rooms. And what I'm going to do, folks, is I am going to, let me ask, who would like to be in a room with sign interpretation and with captioning? You will actually have captioning because you've logged into that. But and if you can put something in chat, then we'll be sure that you get into room 1, which is the room that will have those services. Otherwise, what I am going to do is I am going to, okay, great. Jolly fun. Okay, will do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and assign everyone to a room.
And if you're not able to use the chat feature and you'd like to be in the accessible room 1, feel free to use the reactions button to raise your hand, or raise your hand and wave at us.
Great. And so we're going to be in these rooms for about 10 minutes. And your moderators will be Matthew Shapiro, myself, Tanya, and and Jesse. So let's see about making this happen. And it's going to take me just a second. But let's do it. Okay, so I have 26 people that are unassigned.
Oh, what? Why didn't it happen?
I don't know.
Well, that's okay. We will. Happy to assign people manually. So I will if you will work on room 1,
Okay.
I will take the others and we'll just see. We'll even it out as we need to. So I'm going to take. And thank you everybody for bearing with us. We very much appreciate it. If I accidentally put you in a room that you don't want to be in because you wanted to be in the accessible room, you'll tell me.
Excuse me, Tanya. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Would it be okay if I can be in a breakout room with Gray, if that's okay?
I'll do my best. I'll do my absolute best. Yes. Let me
Okay.
see where I haven't put Gray anywhere. So we're going to make Gray room 1. And so here you go. Gray, you are going to be 1 at the end of this show. Matthew, you are going to be 2. And I believe I've forgotten who the other person is. The 4th. It's okay. It's okay.
Oh, it was, so it's me, it's you, it's Jesse, and it is Matthew.
Oh, you've already put Matthew's in 2 already. Okay, you're in 1, and I don't know where Jesse is. Do you?
I don't see him. Guys, you know what?
Y'all are being so nice. Everybody's in their rooms now except for you, Gray. So
Okay.
I'm throwing you in 1, and there you go. And I need to join.
That's weird. It sent me back here.
I may have done something, but no, I didn't. I don't think I did.
I
All
mean,
right, let me focus.
I don't mind. I just didn't want you to think I was being defiant tonight.
Right. So Gray's in 1, Jesse's in 2, Matthew's in 3. Who I gotta go to 4.
Yeah, it started to send me to 4 and then kick me back here.
Yeah. They're popping back in. It's working great.
Thank
It's
you,
like
everybody.
popping fresh.
Hi, Greg.
Hey,
This is
man.
John.
John, good to see you. Thank you all very
Thank
much.
you, Tanya, for my cover down.
Hey, Paige.
You're welcome.
Hey, John.
Hey,
Well,
buddy.
Thanks, Tanya.
I think Gray's trying to continue. So
How are
let's,
you doing, Daniel?
let's
folks,
Thank you.
if I could ask everybody to go ahead and mute yourselves again. Really appreciate everybody sharing your input, because the ARC represents our community. And so it's not just the ARC sharing what's important to the things that the ARC knows is important to us. It's also what we have to say. And so so we're going to take that information back, and it will help inform our priorities moving forward. So thank you. I am going to go ahead and share my screen again so that we can get back to the information.
Oh, it's called.
And I believe next up we have Matthew.
I will take the reins from you again, Gray. So thank you everybody for jumping in on those breakout rooms. So we really wanted to hear from you all and share your thoughts and get your input on the issues that you thought were affecting us as a community. So wanted to provide you with a couple of other resources. You know, we often ask ourselves, like, how do we find information out about the candidates so that we know who to vote for, right? And so wanted to share some other resources that you all can utilize to find some of that information. So the first one is called VPAP. And it offers a variety of information, a long variety of information, including, you know, where your district is located, where your polling place may be, and who may be on the ballot in certain parts of Virginia, as well as you can very easily and quickly get onto candidates' websites and their social media pages, which is a great place to, again, find what their stances are on issues. So if you're unsure, definitely consider using VPAP. There's another national database called Ballotpedia. Funny word, if I do say so myself, but it's called Ballotpedia. And it includes Virginia, along with all of the other 49 states that has all of the information about different elections. And so this is really good for people who are experienced in navigating lots of information and getting information that they need. So again, also think about visiting candidates' websites and social media pages. Again, they can be found through a Google search and or using VPAP to get to that information. When we think about Virginia-specific information, we have wonderful resources here on the bottom. Obviously, we all know that the ARC of Virginia does our yearly, or election yearly, I should say, candidate forums for the statewide candidates. So governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. And so the first link you see there is the link to the video for the Virginia Candidate Forum with the Developmental Disabilities Council. And unfortunately, Attorney General Herring was unable to attend that evening. And so he also provided a video for with his thoughts on issues for people with developmental disabilities at that second link there. And then as we're getting closer to the election, other ARC chapters in Virginia are doing candidate forums for the House of Delegate candidates that are up for election in this year's cycle. And so when you go to that bottom link there, you can find a list of the scheduled events, as well as video links for the upcoming other candidate forums. So this is really for your local candidates. So who would be your House of Delegates member? You can learn how they may feel on developmental disability issues. Next thing to think about is if you can't find what you're looking for, one of the first things you can do, again, is check out candidates' websites. Oftentimes, they have places where you can contact them, like a contact here page. And incumbents will definitely have, incumbents meaning they are currently in office, so they're the current office holder, and they will have, again, contact us links on their websites, as well as district offices that you can call or send mail to get information to them. Also, we would encourage you to try setting up meetings with them. I know Dorothy had mentioned before we got started that she has a meeting with Senator DeSteph, so she's doing a great job of doing advocacy. And so when you attend one of those meetings, take a one-pager that outlines a little bit about yourself and talks about your story and the issues that you're passionate about. And so if you don't know who your representatives are, you can use that bottom web link there. It is who'smy.virginiageneralassembly.gov, and that will help you determine who your representative is. All you have to do is put in your zip code, and it'll pull up all of your representatives from the state level to the national level as well. So these are just some resources that you can use to learn more information about the candidates that you'll be voting for come November. So now that you've been educated, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse Monroe with Our Voices, who is going to tell you how and share with you how to develop a plan on voting. So Jesse, take it away, sir.
Right. Hello, everyone. So now you've learned why it's important to vote. You have to make a plan to vote. Now I'm going to tell you how to do that. All right. So first of all, you want to go to the website called vote.virginiaelections.gov/voter registration, voter information, excuse me. And once you do, there'll be a tab where you confirm, it says confirm your registration status. That way you can see if you have to, if you are already registered to vote or not. And you click on that. Okay. And then now want to find out if you are registered to vote or not, and also to register if you're not, you will need certain things. You'll need your either a state ID or driver's license, or you also need to know your social security number and your home address. Once you have this, make sure you click on register to vote if you're not registered, and then you put in that information and you can register to vote. All right. Now, once you've done that, there are several different ways to vote. There's 3 different ways. You can vote absentee by mail, or you can vote in person early, or in person on election day. All right, if you want to apply to vote absentee, which is voting by mail early, you go to the same website and there's a tab for vote absentee by mail. You're going to need the same 3 documents, or the same 3 pieces of information that you had to find out if you're a registered to vote and register, meaning your identification, your social security number, your address. Now, if you want to vote absentee, you have to submit it by October 23rd in order to vote for this election. So please remember to do that before that date. All right. Now you can also vote early in person. In order to do that, you have to go to either your registrar's office or a early satellite voting location. To find out those 2 things, you go to the same voter information website. In order to vote, you will need either a voter ID or some kind of other state official ID or a student ID. If you don't have any of those, then you could also write out a statement at the polling place confirming your identity. Thank you. So now you can also vote in person on November 2nd from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. To find where your vote at, you can go to the same voter information website. It'll tell you where your polling place is based on where you live. And you will need the same documentation, either your voter either your ID, state ID, or driver's license, or some other kind of form of identification, or you'll have to sign a document confirming your identity. So, and those are the three ways you can vote. And now, you also have to make plans if you have accessibility issues while voting. The Virginia Department of Elections lists the following requirements for all in-person voting locations, including absentee satellite sites. So every polling place has to have these things, and if you need them, you should ask for them. 1, accessible parking spaces with curb cuts where needed. 2, signs showing accessible route to the building and accessible entrances. 3, at least 1 accessible voting chair. 4, seating available for voters waiting to vote. 5, sufficient space for wheelchairs to maneuver. 6, notepads for written communication with election officials. 7, magnifiers for election materials and ballots. All right. Now, also, if you are 65 years or older or have a physical disability, you can vote curbside. That's where someone will come to your car and help and assist you with voting at your polling location. And you can do this on election day. If you choose to do this, you should bring someone with you who can go into the polling location to request curbside voting assistance for you. All right. Now, we're going to open things up for questions and answers. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much, Jesse. That was fantastic. You really covered a lot of information there. Before we answer questions, I just really wanted to thank Jesse, Kevin, Matthew, and Tanya for spending a lot of time to develop this program, and really appreciate your expertise. And thank you, Dorothy, for opening us up. Thank you.
So don't forget Dorothy.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely
You're
not.
welcome, Gray. And also, I was answering some of the questions in the chat while we were going. So for some people already.
Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you so much. So,
You're welcome.
so I know that there have been some questions in the chat, but I see that John has his hand up. John, what is your question about voting? And you'll need to unmute yourself, John. John, are you able to unmute yourself?
I'm here.
Okay, what's your question, John?
What does this Q8 stand for?
Oh, Q&A, question and answer. So if you have questions about voting, you've got the people here and they are ready to answer. Do you have any questions about voting?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a question.
Okay. What is it, John?
I don't know what the question is. I don't know. I need someone to help me out.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, if it comes to you, let me know, and we'll do our best to answer it. If you can't think of it, then you can always email it to me and I'll get you an answer. Sound good, John?
Ask Jen to do it for me.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. It's gonna go to the A.
I'm sorry, John?
A. The
A?
answer.
An answer, question and answer, Q&A. Yes.
A is better. What is the vote
When
for?
it's a vote, that's going to be on November 2nd, which is the first Tuesday in
Actually,
November.
do it, Ray. My birthday is coming.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
can't be there.
Okay. All right, John, I'll tell you what, thanks for the question. And I'm glad to hear you've got a birthday coming up. That's exciting. Reed, I see you have a question.
Yes, so, curbside pickups only for 65 and plus, or people with certain types of disability, or what types of disability? Like, if my mom's, I'm asking for her, 63, but she had a knee surgery a couple of years ago, and she eventually is going to get another for her other knee. Would she be eligible, or would I, on my own, for myself, would I separately be eligible for myself for curbside voting for my own, for me voting?
Well, it's a good question because it looks like a couple of people asked that in the chat box. Gray, would you like me to answer that, or?
Tanya, feel free to take it away.
Yeah, so it is, you are right, it is available, curbside voting if you're over 65 or you have a physical disability. So that's on election day at your polling site. But you will, here's what I think is a difficult part. Remember to bring somebody with you that could go in and ask for that accommodation. So they might need to be able to go inside to request the curbside voting assistance if there's not already a line set up. In some polling locations, I've seen them have that set up, but if there's not, you simply request it and you will be able to use that if you have a physical disability.
Physical, not developmental, correct?
Correct. Or over age 65.
Okay. So if I know someone that had like a knee replacement and need to do it, or if I have a relative that's over 65 but they live in another state, so they would do it according to their state and jurisdiction laws or something?
That is absolutely correct. The knee, yes, and separate states, yes, their laws. So very good. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Looks like Paige has her hand up.
Paige, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay. And here's another option for voting, the absentee by mail. I got mine.
That's great, Paige.
Awesome.
Awesome. So you went ahead and you went through that process. You applied to vote by mail. They sent you your ballot. You've got it, and you can go ahead and mail it back in. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I saw something in the chat that I thought was interesting. Somebody, and I think it may have been Reed, brought up a question about transportation when it comes to issues. Tanya, could you talk a little bit about where transportation might potentially fit into the ARC's priorities?
You know, that's a hard one. I mean, we know that that's an issue all over the state. And there are groups, a lot of the issues around transportation are local issues. Right now, we've not seen a solution. Anytime we come up with, we recognize and see a problem. In order to move forward with a bill, we have to have a solution, right, that we can propose. And right now, whether that's a change in code, the law, or a change in a policy, right now, we've not found a solution, we collectively, that we have a bill that we would be able to propose. So I don't see anything on this year's agenda, but I think it's a conversation to continue having. And there are certainly, Lucy, jump in and correct me or add, but there are certainly across the state multiple transportation coalitions and groups that get together to try to problem solve. So I think that staying involved with those conversations to try to come up with solutions is what we all need to be able to do.
That's great. Thank you very much, Tanya. It looks like Dorothy has her hand up. Dorothy, do you have a question?
Things, since it came up. The first thing is some voting sites, because I don't have a physical challenge, will ask you if you want curbside citing, curbside voting, because they're right there, and they'll bring you the ballot to the car if you want it, if the weather's bad or whatever. So it depends on the voting site to be able to use curbside voting, because I've been asked even without a physical disability. Second thing, there is possibly a solution for transportation problems, and that's maybe implementing driving in the people's, be able to implement it into people's plans so that people who can learn how to drive, or those who can learn to catch the bus, that would like to catch the bus, that would free up the logistic care, whatever they call that program's transportation, for the ones who do not want to learn to catch the bus and who cannot learn how to drive. Since it came up again.
Thanks, Dorothy. I know that that's something that you're very focused on and are looking forward to driving yourself soon.
But there are other people too in other places that didn't know that they were able to drive. So that's just a misfortune that can't be implemented in providers where they can help people do that. You know, not just, I'm not saying it for me, I talk about everybody, you know, so that they could free up the issue with transportation for people who absolutely cannot learn to catch the bus or drive. I'm one that wouldn't want to catch the bus, but there are people that doesn't know that option's out there.
Okay.
I think that's a good education piece, Dorothy. So I'm glad you brought that up. Well, sometimes our advocacy is about bills and laws and legislation, which we kind of focus on, you know, tonight because of General Assembly. But a big part of advocacy is what you're talking about, which is educating people about what they can do. So.
But see, putting it in the plan, it could become maybe a bill or something that's said with DMAS to be able to put that in, let it be part of a plan for.
Well, it can be in anyone's plan that is already available. So we need providers. It sounds like an education of providers and people to ask for it, because providers and individuals can ask for that to be in their person-centered plan anytime. So that's
but right now, providers can't actually do they can't do the education part for some of that because it's not part of their jurisdiction to do so. So that's why that's just saying that is a solution that could be out there.
Okay, thank you, Dorothy. Jellyfon, I see that you have your hand raised. Jellyfon, there we go.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure I mention another option for absentee ballot is the print disabled option, where a person with a disability could request a ballot through email. Now, the other downfall to that is you request it through your email, you click your candidate through your email independently, but you will still have to print it out and mail it. But that is an option as well. So I just want to make sure that I mentioned that. I'm sorry, I didn't fix that on your slide when you sent it, but I just want to make sure that that is mentioned.
Is that also, do that, would that be, is that where you do absentee, fill out thing for absentee balloting, the same place?
Yes, yes.
Same
You
website?
requested through the through your local registrar, the same way you would request absentee ballot. But you just ask for the electronic ballot. And then, but just remember that you still have to mail it the same way you would mail your absentee ballot.
Right.
But you will receive it electronically, and then you go through the settings and prompts.
Thank you, Jolie Fun. And Jolie Fun, thank you so much for being here. You agreed to spend some time with us this evening in the event that questions came up, and you are the expert on things like that. So thank you so much. Reed, I see that you have a question. I wanted to, though, we have time for maybe one more question. And before we go to you, Reed, you've already had the opportunity to ask a question. Is there anybody else who has a question? Keisha, I see that you have a question. What's your question, Keisha? Keisha, you're muted. There you go.
There I am. Sorry. I wanted to know if you don't have all those information about the absentee ballot, where else can you recommend us to go?
So thank you. So in other words, where would you go to get your, how do you go about applying to get your absentee ballot? Is that your question, Keisha?
Yes.
So you just go to that voter information website, and that is going to be, it's right there in the slide, and I'm going to email these slides out to everybody that is registered. And if you still have a question on that, Keisha, I'd be happy to help you with that. I am actually going back. It is the website that you go to is virginia.elections.gov/voter information. But that's on the slide, and you can go to that web address, and that button is right there. You just click on apply to vote absentee by mail and follow the prompts. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Another thing, what if there's not a way that you can I guess I'm trying to say get to it or get it on your location?
So if you're having, I'm sorry, Keisha, I don't understand the question. You mean that you might not have time to vote, or?
Well, I was trying to say if you don't have a plan to do the either or, if you don't have a plan to do either or online or in person, how should everybody know how to vote?
Well, the three ways are that you can either vote early in person, you can vote absentee by mailing it in, or you can actually go on election day. And it's really up to us to make a plan to be sure that we figured out which is going to work best for us so that we can vote.
Thank you.
You're welcome. John Russell, did you have a question? John, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, what's your question, John?
My question is, what is what's that what Jesse said? Jesse, what's that what Jesse said?
What's the one that Jesse said?
Yeah.
What?
So, Jesse, did you want to answer that, or do you?
Sure, I talked about the 3 different ways you can vote and how to do that. What specifically did you have a question about?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Well, as Grace said, maybe it'll be helpful when the slides come out to review Jesse's slide again. He had
Thanks.
several of them.
That's right. So John, you'll get that. And Reed, I see that your question, and we'll close it with this. Reed, you have a question of how do I sign up for mail-in voting if I still can? And that's
Excuse me, Gray.
yeah, John.
I do have the a mail. It's in the office. Jen has it already.
Yeah. So you can just go ahead and fill that out, mail it in, John.
Yeah, I give it to her and she will sign it for me.
Okay. Very good. So the last question from Reed is, can I still sign up for mail-in voting? Yes, you have till October 23rd, Reed. So you still have time. Just go to the website, vote.virginia.elections.gov, and click on apply to vote absentee by mail. And you'll be able to do that. So with that, Matthew, it looks like, did you want to say something?
Sorry, I was scratching my ear. I was itching my ear.
No problem. Well, folks, I just wanted to thank everybody for being here. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks everyone for being
Thank you, folks. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks for
Tanya.
this session.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Yep. Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you, my dear friends.
Thank you,
Tanya. Thanks,
Great
everybody.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Yep.
Good to see everybody.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good to see you.
Jesse.
Bye.
Good to see you too.
See you guys at the rally in November.
Bye-bye.
Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Same here.
Bye.
Bye.
See you all at the rally in November.